Welcome to another in our series of Kehillat Israel podcasts. This is a recording of Rabbi Amy Bernstein's weekly Friday morning Torah study.
I'd like to dedicate our Torah study this morning to the memory of Dr. Bella Shapiro, who we laid to her rest on Wednesday, who used to join on Zoom every week. She used to sit right here. Yep, she used to sit here, and then she's been on Zoom every week. She died. She was coming to Torah study until really a few months ago, and she died at almost 102. So may her memory not only be for us a blessing, but an example that at 101 and a half, Bella was still studying Torah every week with us. So there's never a reason or a way to say I'm too old to learn for anything. So we're going to dedicate today's study to her, and along those lines, I chose a text in memory of Bella that deals with this idea of Avraham Zakein. Avraham, either you can read that as a verb, he aged, or you can read it as an adjective. Old. He was old. Right? All right. So that's where we're going to focus on this line of Torah. We're going to focus on that today. But we'll do a few more lines past there in order to bring it all together in our source sheet.
Hebrew for mature.
Zakein.
That's smart. They know it's the same.
Mm-hmm. Because once upon a time, old was not derogatory, right? So what I hear you asking in that question is already a commentary, right? That isn't there a word for mature rather than old? But once upon a time, old meant respected. So you wanted to be old, you wanted to look older because that's who got respect in the clan.
And in some cultures, that's still
And
true.
in some wiser cultures, that is still true. We'll recall that we had the Akedah. We talked last week about the binding of Isaac. We looked at the text that said very clearly that Avraham came back alone. He and Isaac did not come down together that we have indicated. So he comes down alone. What we know is that at least in Torah, we never see the two interact again. At all. I don't think that's an accident. They call me an English major who's reading too much into the literature, but I don't think that's an accident. They never interact that we see again. And then when Avraham comes back, what we're told is the next thing we know is that Sarah dies. Okay, so this parsha is Chaye Sarah, ironically named because it actually starts with Sarah's death. So the life of Sarah was 127 years, and she died. So we don't see another interaction after the Akedah between Avraham and Sarah either. So Avraham has in some ways had a lot of things fulfilled that was promised him, and he took a lot of risks to get where he is. He's very successful. He's had a lot of things come true that he didn't think would be possible, and we never see him interact with his son again. And just after going through that torment, the next thing we know is that his life partner is gone. His life partner of 127.
Sure.
Okay. So we're picking up with Avraham in an interesting place. So what are we told after he buys a cave in the field of Machpelah to bury Sarah. This becomes the family burial site. Remember, they would have been practicing secondary burial. They would have been burying the family in a cave. You wait until the flesh has decomposed, and then you take the bones and you put them in an ossuary, an ossuary that gets buried in the center of the cave in the ground. So the cave is used over and over and over and over and over for people, and then their bones are buried in the middle. So some of us believe that this is where we get the original idea of an unveiling a year later, right? That there was a second ceremony, like when the flesh had decomposed, where you went to collect the bones, right, and lay them to rest. So that you weren't done just because you put the body where it was going to be. You had secondary burial. This is when Joseph says, "Take my bones up from Egypt." This is what Joseph is talking about, secondary burial. When we talk about Jesus being put in the cave and a stone rolled in front of the cave and then he's not there, right? That's why it would have been secondary burial. His body would have been there until it decomposed and then the bones would have been buried. But the miracle, of course, is that he's not there. He has risen. Okay. So Abraham buys the cave. Remember, Abraham is an immigrant. It is very difficult to buy land in these societies of the ancient Near East. Very difficult to buy land. He is charged an exorbitant amount of money. First, they offer it to him. No, just take it. Just take it. And he says, I want to purchase it, right? I want the deed to the land. And he's charged an exorbitant amount of money to do it. But Abraham decides he doesn't want it questioned that he owns this land. And so he pays an exorbitant price to buy for his family a place for them to be laid to rest. So then we pick up right after. Yes. The cave of Machpelah is where he has to buy a cave to put them in, to be respectful, right? You don't want the body decomposing. And like Rachel doesn't have that, right? Rachel, of course, doesn't have it. Why? Where's Rachel buried?
By the side of the road?
By the side of the road, right? She dies coming back from Haran. She dies on the way giving birth to Benjamin. And so she's buried there. She's not buried in the family cave. Everyone else from the patriarchate is buried in that cave. Okay. We went to lay Bella Shapiro to her rest on Wednesday. We drive to Yemensville and we pull up to the Jewish part of this cemetery and the chapel, which is this white concrete building with a white dome on it that looks like a mosque. Yeah. And we pull up and I'm like, what is this? Like, why does it look like this? Right. So then we go into the chapel, which by the way felt like a tomb. It was freezing because it's made of concrete and so we're freezing. And we go in and there's, the candelabra, the electric candelabra and a huge painting that has this building on a hill and people walking by that are clearly Israelite. And then I'm like, what is happening? And I look at the thing and it's a quote from Torah that Rachel weeps for her children as they go into exile. So what that white building is on the hill in the painting and the replica that we are standing in is Kever Rachel. It's where Rachel is buried, right, on the side of the road. And the Israelites have to pass by that as they go into exile. Because she's not in the cave of Machpelah.
Okay. Why would she be buried on the side?
That's where she died.
Oh,
they can't carry the body with them. They had no way to preserve the body. Okay. So she was buried, meaning in the area of the road that goes to the main travel route.
Any motivation or reasoning behind two burials? Why not just put it all, let the body decompose and let the bones stay there?
So part of the challenge in the ancient world was to build a grave, to dig a grave deep enough that animals won't disturb it. So you had to, when you did dig a grave in the ancient Near East, you needed to cover it with stones or something to tend it so that animals didn't dig it up.
And is that why we still put a stone on the?
I believe it is the beginnings of the tradition of leaving a stone at the grave in order to say this grave is being tended, right? In the ancient world, if you wanted to tend the grave, you would make sure it had a lot of stones on it. So I think anthropologically it's a remnant.
Just because it has to be deep doesn't give me any reason why one burial decomposed sector.
Well, also burial in the ground takes a lot of land. And if land is your major resource, you don't want to give it over to burying. You want to give it over to planting or to grazing. You don't want to give it to burial. Why bury in the ground when you have a cave?
But why not just put the body, without it being decomposed, into this plot in the grave, in the cave?
Because they don't want to, I think part of it is they don't want to take up a lot of agriculture space. Look at the cemeteries, look how big they are. They don't want to give that kind of land. Land is your wealth.
No, but
You don't want to give it over to dead bodies. You want to grow something.
so you're saying that the ratio of body space with flesh versus body space with just bones is significant enough to do the second burial?
Correct.
I don't buy it.
Correct. Okay. Well, you go do the research, come back and tell us next week what you think.
Amy?
Yes.
In Hawaii, they do that.
Yeah, in Hawaii, they do that. In lots of places, they do
that.
I mean, I am positive it has to do something about how much space. But remember the ratio of death in the ancient world to the living. Half of children died before the age of 5, right? Women died in childbirth consistently. People died of accidents. People died in war. I mean, so you either burn bodies. That's a lot of funeral rites are about burning bodies. You don't want to put bodies in the ground. It's counterintuitive. To use up that much land for all of the people who are dying, it just is counterintuitive. I don't even know why we do it. It makes no sense. Like, you should burn it or you should put it somewhere, collect the bones, and it's much more condensed. That makes way more sense to me than putting it in the ground. And then you can never do anything else with that ground. Ever. So I actually think, Jim, that it's counterintuitive to bury bodies in the ground and eat up all of this land space. And this is what people are arguing about today. Why should I buy a plot? And why should I take up so much space when I can be cremated and put in an urn? Right. So this is, I mean, I think the intuition is not to use up that much space for someone who's gone. You dispose of their body in some other way.
Do I remember you're being very much again now?
No. You remember me saying Jewish tradition has been against cremation.
I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
All right. 24:1. V'Avraham zaken ba bayamim v'yud hevavhe beirach et Avraham bako. Avraham was old, or Avraham got old. Depends how you want to see this, adjective or verb. Now, Torah, that we know doesn't usually waste words, says, ba bayamim. What does your translation say, ba bayamim?
Advanced in years.
Advanced in years. What does the Hebrew literally mean? Where's Betsy when I need her? Ba, to come into, yamim, days. Avraham was old. He had come into days.
Where are you? Where are you?
24:1.
24.
Yes. So why does Torah put ba bayamim? Avraham is old. Sarah was 127. We know that they're peers. We know Avraham is old, and we're just told that he's old. What is this for the rabbis, ba bayamim, now that you've got these two words here? What is that for them? That's an engraved invitation.
Midrash.
To Midrash. Torah doesn't need to say Baba Yamim. And if it doesn't need to say it, God doesn't waste words, God forbid. So this must mean something else. So to your point earlier, Judith, does this mean he's not just old? He's something else that can happen with age, but not necessarily? Possibly. Maybe it means something else entirely. What else are we told? That he is old. He's Baba Yamim. We're going to look at what that means. Yud He Vav He, and God Beirach et Avraham Bakol. God blessed Avraham Bakol in everything. Okay. So my translation that you're looking up here, the Koran Jerusalem Bible translation, says God blessed Avraham in all things. So what would you think of if we say all things, he had been blessed in all things, what would you think of?
Good health.
Good health. What else?
Fortune.
What, Justin?
Family.
Family, a child. Remember, how long did he wait for a son from Sarah? Right? What else?
Rich.
He was rich. So material wealth.
Enough money to get a bride.
Enough money to purchase a bride for his son, which is the only thing he has left to do. So it's not accidental that this business starts with Avraham is old. Because what is 24, Genesis 24? What is this chapter about?
The death.
Getting Rivka
Transition.
for Yitzchak. So this is the last thing Avraham, who has been blessed in everything else. The only thing left is Isaac is not married. Right? In order to ensure continuity, in order to ensure Isaac will be the patriarch, which means Isaac's going to have descendants, that means Isaac has to get married. So this is not extra information in terms of him being old. This is Avraham is approaching what he perceives to be the end of his life. And the next order of business, you get your will done, you get your living trust done, and you make sure you have married off the last child successfully. Yeah? Do you know there's a bracha when a family marries off their last child successfully? There's a bracha. Yep. All right.
We feel bad.
There's a bracha. Like, thank God I finally took care of the last of them.
Could this be translated? He only had days left, as opposed to years.
So Baba Yamim, that he had come into his days, meaning he'd come into as many as he was going to get. Beautiful.
Or that he didn't have a lot of days left.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Very chazalish of you, Bert. All right. Vayomer Abraham el Abdo, and Abraham says to his slave, Zikan Beito. What is Zakan? But here, Zikan Beito, the old of his house, his senior slave, or servant, I should say, his senior servant. So this is Abraham's CEO, right? Or if Abraham is CEO of the patriarchate, then this is his COO, right? All right. So Abraham calls to his COO, and what does he say? And who is this? And how do we know that's what the eldest of the house means? The senior of the house means Hamoshel b'chol asher lo, who looked over everything Abraham had. So now we know this is definitely his right hand. This is his COO. And he says, Sim na yadcha tachat yerechi. Please put your hand under my thigh. Okay. So, and swear the following by the name of God. Right? All right. So this is a ritual where Eliezer puts his hand underneath Abraham's thigh and swears something. So this is right. This is testify, right? Putting the hand on the testes, raising one's hand in court and testifying that what I say is true. And if I lie on the stand, may the consequences come to my testes, meaning my offspring, my inherited, right, my what is an L when you die? Legacy, my legacy, right? So to testify.
And my sex life.
And Bert thinks perhaps it implies also my sex life. May my sex life suffer. Should I lie? Should I commit perjury? May my sex life suffer. Okay.
May it shrivel.
There you go. Okay. So this clearly is a way to make a binding agreement, but it's not Eliezer's testes that are involved. Whose testes are involved here? Avraham. So Avraham is saying, swear to me on my legacy that you will do this, because this is about Avraham's legacy. Avraham is saying, if you mess this up, you will have betrayed my legacy. So swear now on my legacy that you'll do exactly what I tell you.
You just used the word binding in the sense that this is binding. That had echoes of another binding we've just passed.
It does, doesn't it? Okay.
So women clearly never could do this.
Women could not testify. Women could not be witnesses. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. To this day, women can't sign a ketubah. Women can't sign a get. Women can't sign any of that. Women can't testify in court.
Come in Israel.
Yes. Well, I mean, in Orthodoxy, women cannot serve as witnesses.
So they just go shopping.
The things they cannot prepare you for in rabbinical school. Okay. Adonai, so you're going to swear on God's name that you are going to go to my country and you're going to get one of my kin to take a wife for my son Yitzchak. Abraham, who left all of that, wants Isaac to have a wife from there, but does not want Isaac to go. Isaac stays here. Why?
Yes, sir.
Why doesn't he let him go pick his bride and come back with a fancy retinue? And
He might pick the wrong one.
He might pick the wrong one. So does Abraham trust Eliezer more than he does Isaac?
Yes.
To
Isaac may
pick
not
the
come
right
back.
wife. Isaac might not come back.
Isaac just went through some
Yeah.
heavy duty stuff. with his
Isaac has
father.
been through a few things in this place that was promised to Abraham and his offspring. Maybe Yitzchak does not feel quite as
Say,
connected
who's that? Yeah.
to the land and this place as his father.
They had
So
issues.
whatever they had issues, I think that is a minimalist statement about what is happening. But whatever it is, Abraham is nervous for Isaac to leave Canaan, to leave what is going to be their inheritance, their land. All right. So Eliezer has to go and get a bride from Abraham's family to bring for Yitzchak and makes him swear not to take Yitzchak out of this place. So, right? Verse 6, Pen tashiv et b'ni shama, lest you even think about returning my son there. Right? So just make it clear. He is not to leave the ranch. Ba-bum, 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 ba-ba-bum. Right. This is his territory. He cannot leave. Because who knows what would happen to it if Yitzchak leaves? Right? Who's going to look after Dallas? Or, after, what's it called? What was the ranch called in Dallas? Come on, y'all. What was it called? This is going to drive me crazy. Okay, somebody put in the chat what the ranch in Dallas was called. All right.
This has such reverberations for modern family. It still exists. The feeling of wanting to control the marriage partners.
Well, because there wasn't another way to do it. This was the right way to do it, was to make a match. But Abraham feels he's too old to go, right? And Isaac really isn't so critical to the process.
Right. Well, it was
right. Truly, a ketubah was an agreement between the families.
Right.
The bride and the groom don't sign a ketubah. The family signed. South Fork. Thank you. Whoever that was. You just saved my night's sleep. Thank you. All right. So Justin is looking at me like I have 3 heads because he's so young. Half of y'all around this table are too young to remember. Okay. So he's going to, now look at verse 7. Where is this bride to be taken from? Mi beit avi, from the house of my ancestor. Ume'eretz moladati, and from my, Lisa, please. Mi beit avi, from the house of my father. Ume'eretz moladati, and from the land where I was born. What does this remind us of? What is this an echo of? Everything he's supposed to leave. Don't you remember? Leave. Where are you supposed to go? From your father's house, from the land you were born, from your people. He's saying now, in the next generation, I was supposed to leave all of this. Fine, I did. I trusted you. I went. But for my son and my legacy, I want a girl from my ancestors' house, from the land where I was born. For him. How many of you, I have it in my family, how many of you know people or have your own stories of a generation of your family who didn't want their children speaking fill in the blank language? My father was not taught Yiddish because they wanted him to speak English.
Yes.
Right? So what was good for one generation, they didn't want that for the next generation. Abraham was like, okay, leaving everything behind, going to something completely alien and different and whatever, fine. For his son, for his legacy, he wants a connection back from his roots, from his people.
And God has nothing saying no God in here.
Or God, as far as we know, Abraham doesn't think God cares about Yitzchak's bride.
Yeah,
But don't go too far with that, Lisa Rosenbaum, because Eliezer is going to say, may God make it so that, so let's go, because I don't want to do a lot on this story because I want to tie the first verse to this story of Rivka. So I don't want to spend a lot of time in the Rivka narrative, but I do want to go to this business that you just pointed us to. Verse 12. And he says, this is Eliezer, to your point, Lisa Rosenbaum, Vayomar, Adonai Elohei Adoni Avraham hakre na lefanai hayom ve'aseh chesed im Adoni Avraham. Eliezer says to Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, O Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, God of my master Avraham, right? Help me out here. Show me chesed. I'm sorry. Ve'aseh chesed im Adoni Avraham. Show chesed to Avraham, my master. How? Hine, yo, lo, behold, however you want to translate that into English. I translate it as yo. Anochi nitzav, right? Like I'm gonna stand here by this well of water, in parentheses, where the daughters of people come out to water their flocks, in case people don't know that, because every idiot in the ancient Near East knows that's where young unmarried girls go, because it's their job to tend the flocks. Drive through Israel in the Bedouin territory, and you see 14-year-old, 13-year-old girls with the flocks. It is their job to bring them to water. You bring them to water at the communal well. That's where you water the animals, right? So, here I am at the well of water where all the young marriageable women come out, in parentheses. Let it be that the girl to whom I shall say, let down your pitcher that I may drink. Let her say, drink, and I will give your camels drink also. Let her be she that you have appointed for your servant Yitzchak. That's how I'll know that you have shown chesed to my master. Okay, not that Eliezer wants to boss God around or anything. But show my master chesed. How will you show my master chesed? Pick the girl. And how will God pick the girl? Does he say, just the first girl you show me, Adonai, thank you for your chesed to my master? No. When I say, lower your pitcher, please, maiden, that I might get a drink because I'm very thirsty from my journey that's been a really long one across a very dry desert. Let her say in response, not just sure. Let her say, well, of course, and let me also water all of your camels who have just come across a very long, dry desert journey. Camels hold a lot of water. So,
kind to animals.
So this is where we're going, right? Eliezer says, show chesed to my master. For the Kabbalists, what is the midah associated with Avraham? Chesed. Avraham is the embodiment of chesed. He runs to be hospitable to the three angels. They say he's sitting at the tent in order to look for strangers to welcome into his home, right? Avraham is the embodiment of chesed. It goes back this far. Show chesed to my master who is the emblematic representative of chesed. So God show chesed to my master by showing me a young woman who, what her response to may I drink from your pitcher, please, is yes, and let me water all of your camels. Verse 16. He finds or 15. Here comes Rivka, Hine, Behold, Rivka yotzeit. Rivka comes out. Asher Yolda Levituel, who was born to Bituel, ben Milcah, the son of Milcah. Eshet Nachor, the wife of Nachor. Achi Avraham, the brother of Avraham. So she is from Abraham's clan. This is the all-knowing narrator. This is the omniscient narrator. This is not Eliezer. Eliezer doesn't know this. We do. If she's from the clan of Avraham, she is a contender. She is on the Bachelorette officially because she is from Abraham's clan. So, but he doesn't know that. Eliezer doesn't know that, but she's beautiful. So that means she is by definition blessed. So she is fair to look on, right? So that's a good sign. She appears to be dressed as a Bitulah, a young unmarried woman. So this means there's something married women wear that she's not wearing. But we're also told she is an unmarried woman, Bitulah, ve'ish lo yad'ah, and she had never known a man, or a man had never known her. This proves to us, those of you who've learned with me before, this proves to us that Bitulah does not mean virgin. Bitulah means unmarried female, or Torah would not have had to say, and no man had ever known her. Bitulah is used of Mary, mother of Jesus. Oh. Bitulah means unmarried young woman. It was translated by other folks to be virgin because generally you wouldn't want to say about someone in your family who was an unmarried young female that she wasn't. It was supposed to imply if she's not married, obviously, and she's young, obviously it's the same as saying she's a virgin, but it's not. Yeah. You hope that's the case, but that's not true because here we have the proof.
Right? So the whole story of Christianity is up in the air now.
Is a mistranslation.
Right.
Just like Moses having horns.
Another one.
It's a mistranslation. Okay.
So it's better not.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Mortal.
Well, I wouldn't call it mistranslation. It's purposeful.
Okay. So it is a purposeful translation that is not accurate. Okay. She went down to the well, she filled her pitcher, and she comes back up. And he runs to meet her and says, please let me drink a little from your pitcher. And bum, 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 bum. Any guesses what she says? Drink, my lord. And she hastened to let down her pitcher and gave him a drink. And when she'd done giving him drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also until they have been done drinking. And she hastened, v'timaher. She hurried and emptied her pitcher in the trough and ran again to the well to draw water and drew water for all of his camels. Now, we're talking water pitchers that are big. They are clay. When they are full, they are heavy. So she quickly runs to the well, fills it up, and runs back and does this enough times to water. Do we remember how many camels he saddled and loaded up? 10 camels who have just come across the desert on a very long journey. She runs and hurries to water them until she has slaked their thirst. That is a lot of physical labor about which she does not complain at all. And she hurries to do it. Okay. So to Bert's point, so clearly this is in God's hands. Eliezer wants God to do chesed to Avraham by giving the bride to Yitzchak, who will be someone who does this. What does Eliezer want God? What is Eliezer wanting? This is not God deciding what qualities Isaac needs. This is God indicating which girl has the qualities Eliezer wants for Isaac. And as a sign of chesed to Abraham. What does Eliezer want in a wife for Isaac? Someone who welcomes the stranger, because nobody knows Eliezer. And he's not wearing the family jersey. So they don't know who this guy is. Someone who welcomes a stranger, doesn't act suspicious. Very Abraham-like. Very Abraham-like. What else does Eliezer seem to want? He wants someone who's like Avraham in welcoming the stranger. What else? Generous, strong physically, kind to all creatures. Maybe, I know I could be pushing it here, but this is literature. It's our sacred literature. We get to do this. Maybe one of the reasons he wants her to be kind to animals is because she's going to need to be kind to Yitzchak. What, Justin, what was that about, that noise over there?
The what?
The sacrificial lamb, right? So Isaac, we cannot believe that Isaac wasn't changed by that experience.
Sure.
Possibly Eliezer saying, I need someone who's going to be able to love a tender, damaged, vulnerable, right, gentle yeshiva bucher that is not Avraham. So I need somebody who's like Avraham, not like whom? Sarah. Not like Sarah, like Avraham. That's what Yitzchak needs, is someone who will be able to deal, who's so kind to animals that she is sensitive to their needs and is ready to rush to take care of them. Because Isaac might need a lot of tending.
We inferring that Sarah was not tender?
I'm suggesting that Abraham is known to be. So he wants someone who does chesed like Avraham. I don't know about Sarah. What we know is she kicked out Hagar and Ishmael. And she treated Hagar terribly. She oppressed her. So Sarah was a tough cookie. But what Eliezer wants for Isaac is a partner who's going to be able to do like Avraham.
And a good looker.
Huh?
And a good looker. She said
and a good looker. Well, of course, that goes without saying.
What it said.
This was written by men, people. This was written by men. So that goes without saying.
Who went to the gym?
Who went to the gym regularly. Right? Okay. So now we get the story of her. We get the story, and we're not going to go into a lot of that, but I do want to show you one verse from her story because it harkens back, and this is the beauty of knowing the text in Hebrew and the beauty of reading it in Hebrew and the beauty of understanding the literature of it. He eventually makes the offer on behalf of Avraham for her to marry Yitzchak. It means she's going to have to what? Leave. She's going to have to go.
Lech lecha.
She's going to have to lech lecha. Right?
Yeah.
And they called Rivka. Verse 58. They call Rivka. The offer's been put forward. Normally, the families would come to an agreement. But they call Rivka. And they say to Rivka, what do they ask her? Hatelchi? Will you lech? With this guy? Vatomer. And she answers with one word. Elech.
I'll go.
I will go. Elech. She is Avraham.
She saw something.
She didn't see that.
Or she sees something. Now, we skipped the part where he gave her a bunch of gifts. She's a 14-year-old girl who's being given a Kate Spade bag and a lot of Gucci stuff and a gold bangle worth a year's salary. We're not exactly sure what her motivation is. It doesn't matter. It has to be somebody who's willing to say, Elech. Like Avraham, I will go. She's got to be kind and about chesed and about all those things. And she has to be willing to do the same thing Abraham did. Leave it all.
Isn't that unusual that they asked her?
Yes.
They didn't tell her.
So what might that say about Rivka?
She's brave.
Well, she's brave, but that they asked her.
She's strong. She can be like,
She was told in advance.
Some backbone to Rivka that they're like, we're not going to tell Rivka what to do. Right? Do anybody else want to live around here if we tell Rivka she has to? Because we better change our names and find another town. Or the culture of this family that raised such a strong young woman is one that gave her agency. She was raised with agency in a culture that didn't necessarily do that. Also, it can be indication from Sarah the priestess and Sabina Tuval's work. It could be an indication of earlier traditions where she would have been in control, far more in control before the patriarchy than she is when these texts are written after the patriarchy, which some feminist scholars, not just feminist scholars who study women's roles in the ancient Near East, some scholars want to say there was a lot more matrilineal, matrilocal stuff going on pre-monarchy. I'm just starting to do some research about this, but pre-monarchy, that it would have been matrilineal and matrilocal. That in Israel, it wasn't till the monarchy that we get such a patrilineal, patrilocal, patriarchal system. All right, so let's go to our source sheet. Here we go. Avraham zaken ba bayamim, Adonai berach et Avraham bakol, and God blessed Avraham in everything. If we go to Bereshit Rabbah, an early midrash on the Torah text, we see Avraham tavazikna. Avraham wanted old age. He said to God, Amar lefanav, Ribon ha'olamim, Master of the world. When a person and their child enter the same place, people don't know who to be more respectful to, right? But if you crown a person with zikna, with evident age, they'll know who to honor. And the Holy One, blessed be God, said to him, this is a good thing you are requesting. It will begin with you. You got to love the rabbis. In the rabbinic imagination, what are they saying? It's not just Abraham got old. Abraham asked God, make me look old. Because Isaac and I look exactly the same. And when we walk in a room, nobody knows that they're supposed to honor me. Not, Abraham's family junior. And so until that point, no one had ever looked old as they aged. Until Avraham Avinu. Okay. You got to love the rabbis. This is what they do. They sit around doing this all day long. They play with these texts all day long.
And laugh all day long.
And laugh all day long. And people don't know that. A lot of these are tongue in cheek. People don't get it. But they are playing. They are having fun with these texts. So think of a writer's room. Like I think about the show Mad Men or something. And you think about the writer's room that Janet Leahy was part of. Right? It's like, that had to be a fun room. Okay. Good. I never knew this. I thought those of you who know Birkat Hamazon, I thought you might like it. Benching after meals. I never put it together. The rabbis take this verse about Avraham, that he was blessed, bakol. They find another thing about Yitzchak, and they put the word mikol. There's a verse in Torah where Yitzchak, something happens mikol, and then Yaakov, there's a verse about him involving the word kol. So the rabbis say, well, they must be connected. Right? If kol is used about all of our patriarchs, that must mean something. And so, of course, they drosh each of those situations. But in the Birkat Hamazon, that all of us grew up singing or learned as we were older, V'kol asher lachem otanu v'kol asher lanu k'mo sheniprachu abateinu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov b'kol mikol kol ken yivarech otanu kulanu yachad b'vracha shel ima v'nomar amen. Comes from this verse. Now you know. Just as our God blessed Avraham with everything, Yitzchak and Yaakov with everything, may God bless us as well. Kulanu yachad, all of us together with a full complete blessing, Benomar, amen. All right, so now you know. Next time you're benching, now you'll know. All right, Aviva Zorenberg, Ultimately, he dies in the mode of bakol. So Aviva Zornberg is saying bakol indicates a state, a mode, modality, right? That he is blessed. He is full of days. What is that mode of being? Full of days. Come into his days. She goes to the Sfat Emet, and the Sfat Emet says this indicates a condition in which nothing is forgotten, nothing is censored. Bringing all his days with him, Abraham dies in accord with God's prediction. You shall go to your fathers in peace. What is the root of the word shalom? Shalem. What does shalem mean?
Wholeness.
Wholeness. All right. So according to the Sfat Emet, he's old. He had come into his days, meaning he was full of days, meant he didn't leave any of his days behind. Any of y'all have some days you'd like not to bring with you?
Oh, yeah.
I pray every day there isn't evidence still out there.
Nobody took pictures.
Because there were some pictures. Just saying. So like right there are things we want to leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
But Abraham, who left everything behind, according to the Sfat Emet, didn't leave any part of his experience of who he was behind. He found a way to integrate everything that had happened to him, and he was shalem, which is the state of shalom.
So we didn't
He was
get
at
any
peace
examples.
with himself.
He what?
He was at peace.
He was at
everything
peace with
life.
himself, with his life, right? With what?
Vidui.
Vidui.
Confession.
Vidui?
Yeah,
Confession?
yeah. That
In what sense?
in conversation with God, letting things go.
Just before you go.
Okay, so he's in a state of having made some kind of peace with what he's done.
Right.
Okay? So according to Mark, he said vidui. He made his last confession to God. What was I going to say? I wish Mark and Rick were here. Because isn't this the point of therapy?
Yes.
Isn't this the whole point of therapy? The whole point of therapy is to integrate and accept everything that has happened to us, grieve it, and get over it, and integrate it into a new sense of self. It's not about denying what happened to us. It's about saying, I own that that's my past. I don't have to be stuck there. I can move forward. But if we keep denying it, what are we going to keep doing? Carrying with us and going back to it. Right? We act out of it whenever like Avraham, the Sfat Emet is brilliant. The Sfat Emet is saying full in his days means he brought every day forward. Okay, beautiful. Rabbi Lydia Medwin in the book Torah Without End also quotes the Sfat Emet. The Sfat Emet comments that Abraham was imbued with remembering everything he learned, of bringing his learning with him every day as if it were as fresh and wondrous as the first day he learned it. Abraham teaches us about the awakening and insight mindfulness affords us, meaning a mindfulness practice. Even as forgetfulness forever pulls us toward worldliness and materialism, an awakened mind sees the world as it is, continually renewed, engaging us in its marvelous and enduring unfolding. We can be Baba Yamim, bringing each day to awareness when we remember that the everyday stuff is actually the stuff of miracles. So the Kedushat Levi says, this is a translation by Rabbi Jonathan Slater, who we've had the blessing of studying with here. Kedushat Levi, there is a tzaddik, a righteous person whose complete intention and desire is for the sake of the community. And there's a tzaddik whose intention is for their own sake. Avraham was the sort of tzaddik whose desire was for the sake of everybody. This is how we should understand our verse. The conventional reading is God blessed Abraham in all things, bakol. But the direct object et can also have the meaning of with. So read the verse instead. God blessed Abraham with all, meaning the community, the collective, according to Abraham's own intention and desire. That Abraham wasn't just blessed himself, he was blessed with everyone. That was always his intention.
He was a part of something.
That he wanted always for it to be about the community, his family, not just about himself. I love that translation of Bakla. People who spend their lives not just trying to make a lot of money and take great vacations and make it all about self-aggrandizement, and they're clever and they're successful and they're all that. But there are people who do it for themselves, and there are people who are clever and successful and all of that on behalf of the community. That's Abraham, as the tzaddik says this vitamin. So Rabbi Dr. Mira Niculescu is talking about this business of being blessed, and she goes to Midrash Tanchuma, and in Midrash Tanchuma, the rabbi suggests that Abraham was blessed because he had a practice of me'aser, of tithing, that he was meticulous about tithing. Okay, so great. What's the connection? The Me'or Einayim says that tithing is a spiritual practice, quoting the prophet Malachi, and if you tithe, see if I will not throw open the windows of heaven for you and pour down upon you a blessing. So for the Me'or Einayim, there's a proof text somewhere, because remember the game is you take a text from over here and you make it talk to a text over there, because it's all revelation. Therefore, they all have something to do with each other. So if over there it says, if you tithe, I will pour down blessing on you, and Abraham was blessed, it must mean what? That Abraham's blessed. Of course. Of course. That's rabbinic exegesis. Of course. So if he's tithing and that brings down blessing, what are we to learn from that? According to the Me'or Einayim's interpretation, when we give away our wealth and what we hold dear, we emulate Avraham by inviting God to pour blessings down upon us. The teaching is, and you hear this all over New Age teaching, all over the place. You feel like you lack a lot in your life, what are you supposed to do? Give. You feel like you don't have any friends, what are you supposed to do? Befriend somebody. Right? Right. So this is not, I mean, we hear it now, but that's not new. This is the quoting Midrash Tanchuma. Right? Abraham was blessed because Abraham gave. And it's about keeping the shefa, about keeping the divine overflow going. And the way we keep the tap running is we keep giving. Okay? That is an understood, undergirding principle of the universe, according to our spiritual tradition. It's not new. El Shai. Rebekah's kindness and generosity upon meeting Abraham's servant at the well is as abundant as the water she pulls up to quench the thirst of the man and his camels. Aviva Zornberg writes, as she runs back and forth at the well, eagerly providing the needs of the servant and the camels, she resembles Avraham welcoming his angel guests. Impatient, energetic, overflowing with chesed. In fact, the text uses the word chesed 4 times in the space of 2 chapters, underlining the trait in relation to Rebekah. Chesed is also the most commonly associated with Abraham. Rebekah's chesed should not be considered simply being nice. Chesed in the Torah can be defined more accurately as a profound generosity of spirit. Alan Moranis writes that chesed involves acts that sustain another. She gives from a bottomless well, pun intended, of this sustaining love and kindness. Why does this make Rebekah particularly open to receiving love? One possibility is that chesed works directly to counteract scarcity mentality, right? I don't have enough myself. How can I give generously to others? Chesed abides by its own rules, generating love even as it spends it. As Shakespeare's Juliet says, my bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite. Right? Think of a flame coming off a bigger fire. You don't diminish the original fire to light a candle. Now you just have more light. Right? People who say they have more than one child. They didn't think after their first child they could love a second child like an Emily Maple. as much as they love that amazing Abby Zoo. They didn't think it was possible. But what happens when you have that second child, Justin? Just as much. Because what happens to you? There's more love. There's more. There's
when
more.
you love a husband.
When you love
And they're gone.
4 husbands.
Yes, and there's an opening as wide as you want it.
That the more we love, it turns out, the more there is. Rabbi Mark Margolius, Abraham was old, come into his days, that means the original quality of chesed, that of Abraham the elder, came into days, meaning became embodied in the days of the world, in temporal reality through Abraham. Meaning, there was something different about Abraham when he was older, that only comes into being when he is zaken. Then this quality of his comes into days, comes into temporal reality, right? He's chesed, of course, right? All of our commentators know that. Anyone who's going to come from a spiritual perspective knows Abraham is chesed. So he's chesed, right? The divine quality of love which sustains the world. He represents our capacity as beings in the divine image to experience and manifest love, a divine transcendent quality which connects everything. Therefore, Abraham exemplifies the ability to see through the world's fragmentation and witness its underlying unity. It is striking that this quality is associated with Abraham, whose identity is rooted in the experience of living between the past and the future, in the insecure fracture of time and space. Perhaps Abraham's awareness of a quality which transcends the fissures and connects the fragments into a whole is born out of his immigrant consciousness, right? Meaning a non-native consciousness, whether it be the convert, the immigrant, maybe even someone who's from a different gender, someone who's from a different part of the country, right? There is an experience of crossing over that Abraham brings that allows him to live in the fracture of time and space and has a unique ability, therefore, to see the unity that the rest of us miss by not being crossers over, right? Ivri, crosser over. Like Abraham, Rebecca voluntarily steps out of her known and familiar past and towards an uncertain place and future. She too now lives in the existential fracture, the space between past and future. Like Abraham, perhaps from her immigrant experience, she is, meaning only from the fact that she was an immigrant, she is able to perceive an underlying reality which heals and unites the broken. I think this is a deeply important teaching. It's about who we are as a people. I believe it's about who we are as America and a nation of immigrants. I believe this is a deeply insightful comment about people who cross over and have therefore an ability to see a unity and hold the fractured pieces together in a way that we are going to need now more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is deep, deep, deep wisdom. Are we past time? Am I going over?
Mm-hmm.
Oops. Okay. To our point, so I'll close here. To our point earlier. Oh no, never mind. I'm going to keep you just a little bit longer. Text number 11. As we approach the October, November, and December of our lives, the time for harvesting arrives. This involves reflecting on our achievements, feeling pride in our contribution to family and society, and ultimately finding our place in the cosmos. Unfortunately, we have no model of elderhood to encourage such harvesting. So we either fall into disuse through retirement, or else we strive valiantly but foolishly to compete with younger men and women in the July, August, and September periods of their lives. If we viewed elderhood as the crowning achievement of our lives, we would open the door with reverence and anticipation. From Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, from his amazing book, From Aging to Saging. And I'll close text number 10. A distinguished geriatrician introduced Maggie Kuhn, founder of the anti-ageism group Grey Panthers. I originally read this as in a hotel bathroom, and I was very confused for a little while. I was very confused. I was like, standing room only in a bathroom? Where else would you be? Okay, so a distinguished geriatrician introduced Maggie Kuhn, founder of the anti-ageism group Grey Panthers, in a hotel ballroom to a standing room only crowd. He concluded his gracious introduction by saying something to the effect of, and now it is my great pleasure to give you this impressive young lady. Kuhn ambled to the podium, stood silent for a moment, pulled the microphone down to her mouth. She was as short as she was fierce, and slowly and forcefully said, 2 things. I am not young, and I'm no lady. I am an old woman. And the fact that you cannot call me what I am without insulting me illustrates the depth of the problem we face. Shabbat shalom from this old woman.
You've been listening to Rabbi Amy Bernstein's Friday morning Torah study from Kehillat Israel in Pacific Palisades, California. For more information, go to our website, www.ourki.org.